Alright, and hey everybody, and welcome to Chiustream. We are here live. I'm in Toronto, and I also have my buddy John Hardesty online as well.
What's up, everybody?
Where do you live, John? I totally forget.
No, it's totally fine. It's out with the cows in York, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Right
hmm
on. So you guys get a lot of snow up there, or what?
It depends. Like, this year I was expecting a lot more, and I know you do, but we get dumped on every once in a while. You'd be surprised, but it just varies. But yeah, usually we do. I got a snowblower if that answers that.
Right on. So we're also here with Masei Seki, my assistant.
Hey.
Hey.
She's been hiding in the corner there this whole time. Today, what I'm doing is, I'm drawing live, right? Or I'm drawing traditionally, I mean, with a real pencil, real paper, no technology here except for
That's what I'm talking about.
recording it. John loves this stuff because he loves oil painting, and I'm sure there's plenty of kind of theories that you've heard about, like, oh, well, if you want to truly learn art, then you have to use oil paints. Have you ever heard anything like that? Like, oh, you can't learn digitally.
Yeah, I mean, I hear people talk about that, all the time. But, it's funny. To me, it's just another medium. Like, I don't know if that, I probably make the other classical guys mad sometimes because I don't kind of toe the party line, you know? But to me, it's just, digital is just another medium. And so it would be akin to somebody saying, like, you can't really become a painter unless you use oil paint. You can't be a watercolor, you can't be a true artist if you only use watercolor or if you only use, I mean, it's just a different medium. So the principles are all going to stay the same. That's all going to be exactly the same. And it's just a different medium. That's the way I view it, at least. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I feel the exact same, and definitely went through that period of time where everybody was like, um, yeah, you can't learn how to paint and draw from doing stuff digitally, right? And I kind of
I mean,
wondered about that for a while,
yeah.
because I think what the thing was that people feel like they push buttons and then the computer does a lot of stuff for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what it was in the very beginning, at least. Now it's a lot better. Now people understand, yeah, it doesn't actually do stuff just for you. At least right now it doesn't. Hopefully it
Right.
never does, because that would be so not fun. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Well, then there'll be like this. If that happens, there'll be this huge upheaval, and you'll have like a bunch of people being like, we're doing away with digital, and then it'll go to that, and then it'll go back again, and that's kind of how it works. But yeah, it's funny. I mean, I think there's just caution. Like I always just caution people. I would say if you've never used actual oil paint, if you've never mixed paint, like there is something that you're missing in terms of understanding of color, and on the digital side, it you have you can just explore. I mean, you can do things that you can't do traditionally. Well, you can do them traditionally, but it takes you forever. Or exploring these ideas or trying these different things. I mean, if you look at someone like Andrew Jones, that's not really possible to do. Traditionally, what he's doing. I mean, you can, but he uses all these different shapes and lays down these image hoses and painter and
Yes.
puts down all these it's crazy. You know, you know what I'm talking about, right? His
Oh,
stuff.
totally. And for those of you that might have trouble looking up Andrew Jones, you could try Android Jones, and you'll find it a
That's
lot
right.
easier. Um,
Yeah, he's
yeah,
awesome.
he totally lives in the future, builds his own brushes
Yes,
and stuff like that, and it's all
he
very
does.
mathematical and gorgeous, gorgeous art,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
great human being.
But
Um,
even he started off, doing a lot of different things that people don't even know. He actually took a medieval illumination class once. I remember talking to him about that. He
hmm.
he went and did the whole. like Gold Leaf and did all that stuff. So he's done so many different things, and I think that really informs his work.
Well, you know what? That is such the trait of so many great artists and just great successful people is the fact that they always kind of keep their minds open to new ideas, philosophies, and even people, because you never know.
Absolutely.
You never know how it's going to affect you. Now, has
Yeah, for sure.
anything like that, like stuff that you learned outside of the realm of art, that has affected you and helped your art, or new ideas, new philosophies? Any kind of examples from your life?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think like outside of art, I think you know, just I think you become a better artist in general. You have more to say when you experience life more, just in general. So everything, from my family to my friends or to different experiences, I think that ends up getting poured into your work as an artist, and you have more to say. It's like if you're a writer, you can have the best grammar in the world. If you've got nothing to say, then it's kind of pointless. You gotta, and I can't remember what movie it was. There was a movie where there was somebody that wanted to be a writer, and the guy said, just go out and live for a little bit, just go out and explore some things and figure out what life is about. Then you'll have something to write about. So I think that side of it, there's a lot of things that really inform that, and help. I mean, you can see that in Andrew too. Like if you talk to him, you look at his work, and it's totally like a surreal, you know, I mean, it's like Dali. He's like the modern Dali kind of thing, almost in a way. And when you talk to him, you can imagine what the conversation is like, and that's what he talks about, and it's totally, it's I mean, it's genuine. You know what I mean? Like that's an outgrowth of what he's experienced and what he wants to say and what he thinks about the world. It's interesting,
You know what also, like, that I like about Andrew is that he really feels like he would talk to you, or talk to a homeless person, or talk to Mother Teresa, or the President of the United States, the exact same way.
Oh yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
That's really cool, and that's really something that I appreciate from him. Um,
Oh yeah,
Now we do have a
totally.
question, so if it's okay, we'll just go to this first question. It says, "Hey guys, when life throws heavy bricks in your way, what did you do that helped you the most to stay positive and don't let these bad things affect you?"
Hmm. That's a big question. You know what I mean? Like that's a real big question. Why don't you go first? I'll think about my answer.
Sure. I've pretty much redefined my kind of my look on success and look on failures and stuff like that. Like, to think that your life is going to go smoothly to your whole entire life is ridiculous.
Right.
Right? Like, bad things happen to billionaires, people that can buy anything that they want, or famous people that can meet anybody that they want, and all this stuff. So anyways, there's no point into thinking your life is going to be a smooth ride. The other thing that I love thinking about is the fact that as you grow older and older, you definitely start to understand and observe the whole entire idea of balance in your life so much more.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're balanced and you are working hard, that doesn't mean bad things are not going to happen to you. They are still going to happen to you.
Yeah.
But when you're working hard and you're using logic, you're really trying to think logically of what you're working hard towards and how you're doing it. Generally, I feel like when bad things happen, that's a sign. That's a sign that life is telling you, okay, we're just trying to balance things out here, because if you keep going, some really great things are going to happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And really,
Yeah.
it's because of that attitude and that way of thinking that so many things have happened exactly like that, where bad things happen and you're just like, oh, that just means great things are going to keep they're going to happen if you stay positive. That's how you pass life's test, and
Yeah.
it always happens like that on a constant. Today it was a snowstorm this morning, super hard to
Oh
get
man.
in, and I was like, that just means we're going to have a great stream with my buddy
That's
John,
right.
and affect some people in a positive way. So there you go.
And see, if you weren't here to say that, to answer that question, that's awesome. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely echo that. And I also would even probably go a little bit further and say, like my motto is kind of run towards the pain,
Mm.
because most often, and not in like some weird masochistic way, but like, it, more often than not, the things that we are afraid, or things that we see that are stumbling blocks in our way, or things that are hindering where we think we want to go. Those are the things that teach us the most. One of the things I noticed when I was younger is that when I would see a little kid in the grocery store, and when a parent was saying to him, or her, hey, well, what do you want? I'll get you whatever you want. And the kid's acting bad. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. And the kid's screaming, I hate you. I hate you. You know what I mean? And, it's one of those things where if we always get what we want all the time, we'd pretty much be horrible people.
Yeah.
And I think as an artist, if you never were to face a challenge, like what kind of an artist would you really be? I really think you'd be a lame one, and
Yeah.
and so you'd have nothing to
Unmotivated.
say. Yeah, unmotivated, you'd have nothing to say. And so I think a lot of what will refine you and sort of chip away at you as a person and make you better as an artist and everything is going to be those times where, I mean, look, when I finished my training, I had a whole stack of things. We had a roof area where we could go and walk on top of the building, in the studio that I was in, and I took this whole roll of drawings and all these canvases. I went up there and I burned them. I rolled them into like this torch and I walked around the roof and I was like waving it and I was loving it because I was like, all these bad drawings that plagued me, all this frustration, all this stuff. Now I get to burn it, and I'm just and no one's ever gonna see it, I mean, but I needed those. I needed those to give me the resolve to keep going, because the truth is, like, like you said, you'll have waves of different times, and perseverance is the biggest thing that I see where artists fail, is they won't keep going, and things are going to come up, but the more that happens, the more things come up in your way, the more resolve you get, so
Totally. I don't believe I'm gifted in any way in art. Like I believe I'm persistent, and anyone can be persistent, right?
right,
I feel
right.
like if I had any skills in anything, it would be just to be persistent.
Totally. Totally. That's exactly how I feel. When I started training at the atelier, I was behind everybody else. I felt like it took me twice as long to get it. I still feel like that. It takes me twice as long to get something as other people, but the truth is that I'm I'm willing to put in double the time or double the effort or whatever it is, where other people, I'm willing to be patient and do it and wait and I think, honestly, I think that's what's helped me be able to teach as well, because I think, you know, I understand that I started late in art, and I understand that frustration. I understand, like, how your brain works at that stage and what you have to do, and it's all just been pulling that train one step at a time. It's hard to get it rolling at the beginning.
Okay, so here's a question that, as you were speaking, I was thinking about this, and let me pose this question to you. So, say it takes you 80 years of your life to be able to paint well, right? And
Hmm.
you paint over 300 paintings in this span, like full on paintings with studies and so on and so forth, the whole routine, and
Hmm.
all of them stink except for when you hit 80, you paint the ultimate masterpiece that will be remembered for years and years and years, decades,
Right.
centuries.
Right.
Would it be worth it?
Well, this is going to be the interesting answer to that question. Even if I never did that masterpiece, it would still be worth it, because now I would like to have that masterpiece. That's kind of probably how I see my life going. And by the time I'm 80, nobody's going to care, about what I, but maybe later on they will. But even if I didn't have that painting, I don't care because to me, like I think it comes to a certain point where you embrace the work and you sort of fall in love with the work. Like especially for
You mean
for
like the
you, it's
process?
yeah, oh yeah, the process, like getting better, learning, like you probably feel this exact same way that I do. Once you start opening up any pursuit or any, we're artists, so we're spending time thinking about that. Once you start really digging in, it's like it's endless. You could fill 6 or 8 lifetimes and still not be, of things that you could learn or do or try or practice or, so I think falling in love with the process, if you fall in love with the process instead of the end result, I think you'll never be disappointed. If so many people are obsessed with the end result and obsessed with, getting to whatever, they just have this standard of this certain point that they want to get to. But, I think the people that have fallen in love with the work all of a sudden look around one day and say, hey, I guess I'm good. I don't know. I'm just going to keep going. I feel like that's what
Totally,
happens,
totally.
you know?
I've heard a lot of, I've read a lot of interviews with, very successful millionaires, billionaires, and, whenever they get asked, what was it like when you made your first $1 million? The most common answer is, I didn't even notice.
Right.
Like,
Totally.
I didn't even notice. Or, like, what's it like being so rich and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, it doesn't matter. There's nothing to buy anyways. It's just like the money wasn't the thing that drove them, right? It was
Exactly.
perhaps the process and falling in love with the process, like you're saying. But I would love to add something to that, which is don't just, yeah, fall in love with the process. That's super important. But also fall in love with the happiness that you get through a lot of hard work and hardships.
Absolutely.
Make that your your favorite form of happiness.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And I mean, all of this, we've talked about this before too, Bobby, but all this is applicable. Like, this is where me being a husband and being a father has informed my art, and the way I pursue art because it's, you know, when you have kids for a long time, they don't give anything back to you at all. I mean, when you first have a baby, it's true. It's true. When you have a baby, like you're changing diapers and like you may get a smile, but then like some scientist will come on TV and be like, well, actually that's a defense mechanism and they're not really smiling at you because they like you. It's like, and it's one of those things where, if you have kids for what you can get from your kids or what they're going to give you, it's the wrong reason.
Yeah,
And
forget
so,
about it.
you pour into that. And I mean, to be totally honest, like when you're tired and when I'm tired and my kids are like, hey, can you play Candyland with me? And it's been a long day. I'm not like, yes, I love Candyland. Let's play that. But the more you do that, the more you fall in love with the work side of it. And then you learn to love those things and you're pouring into them. And it's the same thing with your art. Like like you said, you derive your happiness from the work and then, secondarily from the outcome of that work. But you're getting your happiness, not just from I'm awesome.
Mm.
So I'm so awesome. That's why I'm happy. You work towards something, and you did it. That's the cool thing.
Well, something that I really love is just kind of thinking about this is how I want my life to be. I want to be a person that works hard as opposed to I'm working hard because I want this. I want
Right.
this to happen. Like you're working hard for the result as opposed to thinking about the kind of person you want to be pretty much every day. And it isn't about
Right.
the result. It's about kind of like the way that you want to live your life.
Exactly, exactly. And we always run away from the things that are helpful to us. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, let's be honest, everybody just wants to sit down on the couch, eat chips, and have servants do everything for us and be rich. You know, like everyone just wants that. You know, like we think we want that, but we don't really. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so, you know, you oftentimes the things that are tough, you have to kind of run towards those to get clarity and all that, you know. But there is a question up, Bobby. It doesn't have a question in front of it, but they're asking how you avoid smudging your pencil in your work.
Yes, so that's one of the reasons why I use a Prismacolor or not a Prismacolor, a Coal Erase pencil because it doesn't smudge easily. You know, Coal Erase generally that's more for like, or I think it's more for the animation industry. You know, because they're the ones that make the blue pencils that everybody uses to animate or to draw roughs with. But you could also get them in black. So I like that.
That's cool.
Another thing that I've been using lately, which perhaps I'll do it another day, is this metallic pen that doesn't use ink. Right? Uh, it will never run out of ink. You can keep scribbling with it forever and ever. Um, it's the same kind of tool that Michelangelo used.
Well, that's cool.
The tip of the pen contains lead, though. You know, so you're actually drawing with lead, with
Hmm.
like metal lead. And the cool thing is that the pencil will never dull as well. It always keeps its nice sharp form. Um, yeah, or you just use paper, right? You put paper under your hand as you're drawing.
I got a question for you on this too.
Yeah, sure.
So, a couple things. So can you elaborate a little bit more, like what your thinking is when you're, you know, those on the side, you did those little thumbnails, you know, and you're kind of
Yes.
working through the ideas in your head. You know, now I know you're just trying out different ideas and stuff like that. Are you just looking for something aesthetically that would be pleasing, or are you trying to, like, you know, sort of illuminate some quality that you, or capture some quality that you already had in your mind beforehand? You know what I mean?
Totally. So, like the very first little sketch on the top left-hand corner, I'm thinking of an alien cowboy.
Hmm.
You know, there's no purpose for this painting or this drawing. So then it turned into a different kind of alien cowboy. Then it turned into some sort of sea-dwelling creature alien cowboy. Then it turned into more of a creature with a scarf. And then it turned into just like a creature. And so what I'm doing there is drawing real small. That way I keep things very simplified and I cover a lot of ground very quickly, making myself draw faster, right? And I can't get into details there because it's so small. So really, I'm just kind of working on the essence of the idea as opposed to the details. And once I get a good kind of thing that I actually want to draw, big and like in detail, then that's when I stop. So the very last one you could see that is very much about the proportion of the ears to the head, and then I just kind of went with it. And you know, really good days I can look at a blank piece of paper and see what I want to draw there, right? But not so
Right,
good
right.
days I can see vague shapes and then I'll jot down those shapes that I want and then look for more, right? You probably
That's
do the
awesome.
same thing. You put down
Yeah,
some
totally.
sketches, that's your like sketch language so that you can be able to see more, right?
Yeah, your initial sketches look a lot better than mine. Mine are like probably look like kid scribbles to other people.
Man, I
My
think
very initial
mine are
ones.
super rough. Like when Kay sketches, those look finished, you know, and
Oh,
then she
sheesh. Yeah.
finishes them even more and redraws the whole entire thing. It's crazy.
That's awesome though.
So we have a question here, which is Nacho asks, in the process of finding who you are, any tips on finding your passion? Now that I begin drawing classes, I found a lot of cool things that excite me, but I'm a little lost. I guess what he's saying with that is like it's all kind of exciting, and he doesn't feel like he knows enough of each of those things that he's learning. So how do you, kind of decide on who you are and what you want to do?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think, I think, what you want to look for, especially when you're first uh, starting. I mean, if you're taking, like you said, he said he's beginning drawing classes. So if you're doing that, I think you have a lot of time. Like what I would say to do is look for the common areas. Like if you have all these different things, like you say, let's say it might be general or it might be specific. You might say, I like illustration, or I like concept art, or I like, storyboards or whatever. If it's that general, then there's a core set of things that will apply to each of those. But even within each of those sort of genres of work, there's going to be a core fundamental set of skills that you can focus on. And I think that's probably the priority. And then just give yourself time. And I think honestly, naturally, it'll just happen naturally at that point. If you focus on building up your foundation, what you're good at, what you like, what you do will naturally come. It's like a musician, you may start off saying, I really, really want to be a jazz musician. And there's some people are very specific. Like they're like, I want to be this type of jazz musician doing this type of thing. And like almost inevitably they don't end up doing it because, they head in a different direction. They were so specific up front that they couldn't see all the variables. And so, I always say just to focus on the foundation. And William Whitaker told me really early on, he said, let your art lead you. He said, once you've got your foundation in place, he said, if you want to go outside and paint sheep all day, John, he's like, paint sheep. He said, just do it really, really well, and people will like those sheep paintings. He's like, and just kind of follow your art that way. But give yourself time. I don't know. I don't know what you think.
I love that advice. That's such good advice. My advice would be just to not give up too early, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and it really ties into exactly what you're saying. It's like if you want to build a house and you don't have the right tools, how do you know if you're going to be a good house builder? And you don't, how are you going to know if you like building houses? Fundamentals are those tools, right? Like you're able to draw
Absolutely.
a line good. Okay, well, yeah, that's good too. That is, that's a fundamental. If you could draw a line on the exact same angle that you want to draw it on, but that's a small tool. That's like the equivalent of having some nails. Then you start to get into color temperature and like different, really being able to identify certain types of shadows and where's this reflection coming from and all that stuff. Then you're building tools that are like bulldozers and like giant cranes and stuff, and then you can
Right.
start building a lot cooler things. So it's like you'll never know if you really like to do that stuff until you get those tools. So don't
Yeah,
give up
that's
too
yeah,
easily.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. That's really true. That's really true. Yeah, it's like, but I think also I would say don't lose that feeling, where you are excited about everything. Don't lose that I mean, eventually, you'll specialize and that'll happen naturally, but don't lose that. That's going to be what drives you to learn and grow, and get better. Don't lose that feeling of, hey, everything is cool, and I can learn from this person. I can learn from this person. I mean, you should always feel like that. At least in my opinion, I think you should.
Definitely,
Yeah,
it's like even if you know how to paint, don't stop learning how other people's paint. Because another
exactly.
big thing is that a lot of us, we tend to get into a rut or kind of like a period of time. If you don't continuously learn, or even if you are continuously learning, you still might go into a period of time where you feel stagnant. You feel like your art isn't really going anywhere, and you feel like you're painting and drawing all the same stuff over and over again.
Right, right, totally. I remember John Foster. I remember being new to art and John Foster saying to me, "Oh, I feel like a hack all the time." Like, and I remember thinking as a young artist, like, John Foster, like, but he's gone through periods of time like that too. Everybody does, where they feel like, it's you're doing a bunch of crap and you don't, and you're not sure where you are in the mix of things, and you're not sure what I mean, that happens to everybody. And so, his solution was exactly what you were saying, just to think, to keep exploring, keep trying new things, and not to feel, let yourself sort of evolve that way, and keep pursuing all that.
Totally. Like if you just look at other artists, like musicians especially, because the whole music scene moves so quickly.
It does, yeah.
You look at any artist that's lasted the test of time, there's always a very clear evolution in their art, right? In their songs that they sing and stuff like that.
Right. Right. And you can sort of, over the life of a musician, if they've been around a long time, you can see like the progression, which is really cool.
Yeah. So let's shift
Yeah.
gears a little bit and talk about pencils. So Divine asks, what do you think about mechanical pencils? Are they better than regular wooden ones? I think it's a different tool.
Yeah. That's what I definitely wouldn't say better. It just depends on the situation, you know?
Yeah. I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of really killer mechanical pencil drawings by Wesley Burt.
Oh,
He
yeah.
has
Hmm.
some crazy sick ones.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but I myself, I like going with the traditional pencil, as you can see. Um, Now, in your class, Essentials of Realism, you go through all the painting stuff, but do you go through drawing stuff as well?
Well, in the early section, when we're dealing with values and edges and stuff like that, it's people could use pencil if they wanted to, because it's just going to be monochromatic in that stage.
Mm-hmm.
And so they could, if they wanted to. Actually, any medium would work for that, because it's uh, just the fundamentals there. But the cool thing is, that's where I can really help. So if somebody wanted to get better in pencil, you know what I mean? That would be the kind of thing where if you have to capture a certain edge, you have to capture a certain value relationship and stuff like that, then you need to learn how to control your pencil. And I've used both of those, used all that stuff. A lot of the traditional materials, I've used all that, and the digital stuff, it follows suit. I use it in the same way I use the traditional stuff. But but yeah, I mean, for me, I like to, the mechanical ones, to me, feel more like pen,
Mm-hmm.
and at least the way that I would function with pen, and the natural, like the wood pencil, feels a little bit more. You can get a little bit more expressive if you want. You can turn it on its side, and you can,
So do
you
you
know.
like the wooden pencils more or the mechanical?
I tend to like the wood ones because the way that I work typically is, especially in paint and when I draw as well, is um, less linear, or I don't approach it based on line. I approach it based on like masses of value. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I approach it based on those masses of value, it's a lot easier for me to turn my pencil sort of on its side and get that value more like someone like Loomis, or someone like that, who would, there were some others like Paul Callie is a great artist. He almost worked. Did you ever see his pencil work, Bobby? Do you know who I'm talking about? Paul Callie?
Um, doesn't ring a bell right now.
Yeah, it's Calle. My dad gave me that book a lot, a long time ago. He gave me that book, and he almost works like it's a like an etching or like a wood carving or something. Like the way he works with his pencil, and it's really expressive. And Guptill, or no, Ernest. No, that's his press. Ernest Watson was the guy. That's what I'm thinking of. He was an artist too that would use very expressive strokes. He would sort of, shave his pencil to like a chisel point. So one point was very sharp, one point was like flat, and he would get really expressive strokes. So I tend to like that because there's variation there, and it's almost like you can work like Sargent but in pencil.
Yeah, me too. I go for the traditional ones, even though I do appreciate the mechanical pencils. It's definitely
Yeah,
a different feel, and
it's certainly convenient. That's for sure.
yeah. Now let me ask you a question about color. Like, okay, so say you're doing Well, if you're painting a painting that's very warm, or uh, a lot of reds and oranges, and you want to express something that is, uh, you know, green or bluer, when do you know to change hues, or when do you know to just desaturate the paint that you're working with to achieve
Oh,
that?
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah. So like, so in other words, like using the grays to sort of see
The
yeah,
opposite.
right, the opposite. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. It's uh Vance Kovacs said something a long time ago. I remember when I was first learning art, and he was saying there's a huge power in grays, and there really is, and you can see that in his work too. He uses that a lot for transition tones and things like that, and it'll sort of naturally come out. I think one of the advantages of being able to look at the paint on the palette first is you kind of get a feel, and constantly doing that, you kind of get a feel for how one color and values, how they feel next to each other. You know what I mean? You're seeing it all the time,
Mm-hmm.
like them next to each other, and I'm placing it down, and so I can see it in different lighting. I see it in, so there's sort of this natural thing that happens when you're mixing paint on a palette where you start to get used to the relationships. And so I think now some of it is subconscious for me in terms of mixing. Like I've learned the relationships and how far to push it and how, it basically just depends on how far I want to push that difference. So if I'm using a gray, it's going to be a more subtle difference, or I can just drive it, really drive it home and really mix that. But of course, it's all based on the composition as well, because a certain area, if you have more of a difference in color, it's going to draw focus,
Mm-hmm.
and people are going to be drawn there. So I always have to think about the individual stroke that I'm putting down, but then also think about that in the larger context with values, edges, but then also the larger compositional context. Do I want to draw that much focus right here? So if I have a red area and I would put down a green, that's like a big, hey, look here, you know what I mean? That type of a thing. Where if I put a gray, it might sort of seem like a green, and get the same effect, but it wouldn't draw as much focus. So
Yeah, but then,
I,
like, when would we know to use more of like a bluish, greenish gray?
Yeah,
You
I mean,
know,
I think it really depends on the situation. You know what I mean? So it depends on the situation. Like, I
like
think it
what other
depends.
colors are you using around your painting?
Yep, yep. I think it's totally like for me, that kind of a thing is totally compositional. So it's like, what's near this? What's next to this? And what am I trying? I have to filter that through. What am I trying to accomplish? How important is this area? How much weight do I want to give this area? And that's where you and I have talked about this, where figuring out what you want to do in a thumbnail study and things like that beforehand, figuring that out beforehand is just like it's essential, because you have to figure out the overarching idea and then figure out more of the particulars before you dive in and start just doing crap.
Definitely.
So, yeah, yeah. So does that, hopefully that helps. Hopefully that answers that.
No, it's so essentially you try it out and you kind of go with think about your purpose of the painting, and you think about kind of like how much attention you want to draw to that particular thing that you're about to paint, right?
Right, right. And it's a big contextual thing. Whenever I deal with colors or values or edges, it's to me it's always contextual. Like I always tell my students, it's the question is not how dark or light should this be, how warm or cool should this be, or whatever. It's always how dark or light should this be compared to what's around it, how warm or cool should this be compared to what's around it. So that's not the greatest answer when people are asking, like, because you're like, well, it depends, it depends, but it really does. But there are things that I end up, repeating, just, like a musician would repeat a certain theme or something like that, I guess, in their work or whatever. You'll hear something that's reminds you of them. And I'm sure I do the same thing with colors and values and stuff like that too. But
You mean
I'm
like
real.
how people would say, "Oh, I used a Zorn palette on this painting."
Right, right, exactly, or even just in a particular passage, like in a particular area of a painting, they'll have some gray, like Vance Kovacs using all grays all the time. He loves grays, like he's in love with grays, or at least at the time he was, when he was mentioning all that. So he uses those in his painting a lot more than, say, someone else would, just because aesthetically he likes it, and so he could use other things, but he likes that. So that's kind of what is one thing that can distinguish his work, that choice. So that's what makes art hard. That's why you have to rely on the fundamentals too, because there are always 50,000 things you could do, and you always have these choices that you make, and there's a lot of good choices, a lot of right choices, and a lot of effective choices, and that's what makes it interesting. But that does make it tough to communicate, to students. But that's why they have to really focus on the fundamentals, because every situation's different, and every, I don't know, it's tricky. I don't know if you know what I mean. You probably agree with that too.
Definitely. One thing that can help a lot of people out there is really trying to distill what are the actual choices here. Because if you kind of look at things as a beginner, you can be like, okay, well, I got this slide for like any hue I want, and then, as saturated, as dark, as light, whatever. There's like millions of choices. But if you're thinking, okay, should I go greener? That's a yes or no choice.
Right.
Should I go more saturated? That's also just yes or no. And if you are thinking, to represent whatever I'm seeing, I need to do this intricate line or whatever, and it's all wiggly with all these little bits and pieces in there, that's a very complex way of thinking. But if you're just to think, should I represent this with a curved line or a straight line? And all of a sudden your options get a lot simpler. Or you can get even more simple, where it's like, it's like I put a sample of your class online on YouTube. You can find the link in the post that I put in the live stream, but as well we'll put a link in the video when we post on YouTube, where you're painting you're showing your block-in process, right? And your drawing is actually all straight lines. All straight lines to represent a little girl. And it's like, well, you can't really draw a little girl with all straight lines, but yeah, you did. And by doing so, you've simplified a lot of the stuff that you need to think about. Right? So that you can look at this sketch years from now and still be able to tell exactly what you were thinking when you drew this line and that line. And that's a huge secret, or not a secret, but a huge thing that great artists do, is that they have such a understandable sketch language, if we can say the sketch language, that they can read it at any point in time. As opposed to a lot of beginners, you sketch stuff down, you look at it after just 5 minutes, and you're like, what was I thinking there? Where is that elbow exactly? Where is that finger exactly?
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and that's and for me, I like to work logically like that. I like to think, okay, let me get the simple things or the big things in place first. So I'm not going to sit there and draw all these curves. I mean, all it takes is for you to draw those curves and those things 15 or 20 times and have to move them,
Exactly.
and spend all that time and then have to move it before you say, all right, maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's a more efficient way for me to get a handle on the proportion or get a handle on where things should be, and all of that, and people see artists skipping steps, even with this sketch that you have here, I mean, you're pretty much going straight for it, and you have to in something like this where you have a short amount of time. You can't sit there and talk about every single thing that's going through your head. But what's contained in this is immense amounts of work with perspective, immense amount of work with anatomy, with I mean, you're putting down these lines, but those ears on the head, I'm fairly positive you were thinking of the perspective line, in space, and the shoulders, and where the eyes line up, and we don't see that when you're just putting it down, but those are all things that you've spent time thinking about, and now you're so familiar with those base concepts that you can sort of just dive in and do it. I mean, there's so many textures in this too. Like, how do you communicate that fur? You've spent time studying that. I mean, there's there's just so many different things, that you've spent time doing, and so it's you've got it now down now where it's a really efficient part of your process. You know what I mean? And you can do it on the fly and sort of combine it in your head. But at first, I'm sure you had to do those step by step.
Yeah, like I could definitely take this, uh, into Photoshop or make a painting out of it, just from the sketch. Like it
Right.
has pretty
Right.
much everything I need.
Yeah, and you communicate a lot with very little on your sketches. You're really, really good at that. Is that something that just is just mileage, takes a lot of mileage?
I definitely would uh, give all the credit to subway sketching on the
Hmm.
subway. Right, people come on, you don't know when they're getting off,
Yeah.
so time starts ticking away, and you're just sketching as fast as you can. So through that, just through a lot of that, I started to develop short forms. Right, it's just like if you draw a car like 1,000 times, at the end that last car is going to be drawn with a lot of short forms because you went
Right.
through all the grind, all the
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
stuff, and then a lot of the stuff has similarities, and you're able to piece them together, with the same brush stroke or the same, line or patch of shade.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Right
I love
on.
that guy in the bottom right, by the way.
Oh.
I want him. I want to take him home.
Yeah, it's like, totally subconscious drawing here, except for the first one was kind of semi subconscious. So, two last questions, and we'll call it
All
a
right.
day. So, one is when. Okay, so this one, the person's saying, when concentrating, or sorry, when creating a character, could you submit traditional work, such as this, or maybe with some marker or watercolor added, or do clients primarily want to see more digital or realistic styles? They definitely appreciate traditional. They just don't want to wait for it. So as long as you
Yeah.
don't make them wait longer than what you would do digitally, then I would say to go with that. And that also means to be able to revise it as quick, uh, as you would do it digitally. Um, that's the thing that kind of stops a lot of us
Hmm.
from working traditionally anymore for conceptual art, is the fact that pretty much everything you do is going to have a revision. Everything. And it's going to have
Right.
most likely multiple rounds of revisions. So if you do an actual traditional painting and then you got to revise it, that's going to be a pain in the neck. But having said that, I do some traditional, paintings and drawings when I'm on a project that I really, really like. So for Alice in Wonderland, I actually have a couple watercolor conceptual paintings that I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just hoping that it would be approved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You can always scan it, bring it in and adjust it that way, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah, but you want that one piece of art where you can show it and be like, yeah, this is where Yoda came from, right? And
That's
then
right.
you're looking
That's
at it and
right.
you're like, yeah, that's Yoda.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's true. It's
Uh,
true.
so the next question is, the person saying, I'm just finishing drawing fundamentals with Tom Flaherty, torn between Steven Silver's, fundamental character design, gesture drawing with Alex Wu, art of character with Seiler. I make toys and dig paint. Which next? Well, drawing fundamentals with Tom, that's awesome to get that under your belt first. That's a good move. Um, I would say character design, if your toys, involve a lot of characters that are, not realistic. Because if it's realistic, then I would go with Jason Seiler. Alex Wu is just a great staple to have under your belt. Gesture drawing, that kind of falls it relates to everything. Relates to everything. But if you do want to learn how to paint, and it isn't just because John is on the stream here, okay, it does look like the next logical step after you learn drawing fundamentals is to learn how we see life in terms of light, color, saturation, edges, and all that good stuff. And John's class, I would say, deals with all of that stuff, right? And that would be a great next step as well. So those are my reasons for each one of those classes, and added in my own, which is John's Essentials of Realism class, which starts February, I want to say February 1st.
There you go. You got it.
Right on, right on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, what I'll be teaching in there is really going to be applicable to any direction that you go to. That's the thing. I mean, so, it's one of those things where it's sort of a good foundation to build from, regardless of whatever direction you want to go, and it's going to help you. You'll hear that repeated over and over again, where people are saying, you have to understand reality, understand how to observe properly before you can really do anything else. And so that's really, I mean, you're going to get that on steroids in my class, and really understand how to break it down. It's a super good foundation for how to observe, how to understand, reality, and how to translate that. It's really good. I mean, it's kind of, I've met so many artists over the years, and it's funny. I actually just went to a Comic-Con, and I was talking with this comic artist. He was really good, and I can't remember what his name was. I feel bad. I have his card over here, but he was talking. He was kind of bored. People were asking him dumb questions, and then I went up and I started asking him questions about his work, and he could tell I was an artist, and so we started talking, and he said, "Man, I wish I could have done classical training." He's like, "I really wish I could have done that," And I've heard that so often and I was shocked to hear. I'm always shocked to hear it, but I've heard it so often from comic artists and from, just illustrators and different people that wanted to do it but couldn't do it. Either time or opportunity or whatever. But that's because I think the reason people say that is because learning to observe reality, learning how to really do that, is essential for everything, and it really helps you move in any direction you want to go. So that's my little pitch there. Was that good? I think that was pretty good, right?
Well, it's the truth. It's the truth.
It is. Yeah.
If you just doodle, you could be drawing the same amount of time as a person that is still drawing with the exact same materials as you, but if that other person is drawing as a result of learning, that person is going to excel light years beyond the person that just spends the same amount of time but just doodling.
Right. Absolutely. And it's about getting to the meat and potatoes. You know what I mean? Like, that's my passion, and that's really what the class is it's the meat and potatoes of what you need to get something to look real, get to understand how to observe reality and all of that. And it's come at a cost for me, over the years of frustration and just gathering knowledge. And so this really is a condensed version of sort of everything I've learned, which is crazy to think about, but it's true.
Well, even more so, like life isn't just the meat and potatoes. It is the source. It is the mother,
right.
Of all art, right? So
yeah.
Where do you start? You start with the fundamentals. You start with the source.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because, the more... The more you mature as a person and the more you mature as an artist, the more you realize, it always comes back to the fundamentals. And I remember Morgan Wiesling, a painter, saying, "Look, when you're doing a painting, and they say, 'Can you critique my painting?' He said, 'It's always going to come down to this: proportion, value, edge, color, or composition.'" Like, those are the things that he said. It's always going to be one of those problems, and when you're talking about the technical side of art, of making art, and it really does break down to that. Now, of course, when you have concept art and things like that, you have, the concept and the functionality, and you have some other things thrown in there. But when it comes to observing reality and understanding what you're seeing, how to duplicate reality, how to, manipulate reality and things like that, it's really going to come down to those simple concepts. Bobby and I, we talked about a little bit about UFC and the other video, how we both like the UFC and everything. But it's funny. People come in and there's a heavy bag in a gym, and what do? They try to beat the crap out of the heavy bag, right? They hit it as hard as they can. And what does the instructor come over and do? He says, "Look, stop hitting the crap out of this bag. Look, look what you're doing with your feet. Why are your hands down?" It's all those things. It's all the fundamentals, the foundational things. And what people don't understand is if you want to hit hard, you put your feet in the right place. You put your hands in the right place. You do it. Then you'll just hit hard naturally. And so really that's like what my passion is. That's what the class is about. And it's going to enable you to do whatever you want to do,
Well,
So,
and also a huge part of Hollywood is turning towards this exact topic that we're talking about, like being able to paint realistic, being able to
mhm.
paint, like if you look at any of the art of any Marvel superhero movie, they are they might as well be classical paintings.
Totally, dude. Totally.
They are
Totally.
so like
Yeah.
on point and so full of fundamentals. It's bonkers. If it was an oil painting, it would be hanging in a museum or whatever. Um, really,
Absolutely. I
yeah.
mean, I think they're going to merge. Like, people have asked me, like, what do you think about classical art? Is it going to go away, or what do you think about this? And I think they're going to merge. I think, you know, people are going to realize, wow, we're kind of doing the same thing. I mean, I think they already are realizing that, but I think
Definitely.
it's going to merge. It totally will because, and more, I've seen more and more of like even the guys that I thought were very, very rigid classical guys, which I'm not necessarily one of those, but well, no, I'm not one of those. But they were very, very rigid, and even now they're coming around. They're like that painting's that Donato Giancola. They're like that's pretty dang good. And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
and I'm like, yeah, yeah, it is. And it's starting to merge. And like, my brother showed me. I remember when he showed me the paintings from the Star Wars 1, 2, and 3, and he showed me the art books from that, and it was digital, I think, but it had like this gouache look to it, and the compositions were crazy. And that was the time when I was like, dang, look at that. I was like, these are like amazing paintings just on their own, just for what they are. Like it's not just a concept. It's not just so I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, and if you look at those, and then you look at the art books in between, you can see this progression. You can see the progression in art. Like
Absolutely.
the stuff now, it's like you gotta know cinematography. You gotta know what kind of angle or lens you're trying to portray your
Right.
painting in, and all this stuff. When
Yeah.
before those, yeah, that wasn't really your job.
Right. Right. Totally.
Yeah, and
Totally.
I seen this huge trend that has happened over the years where a lot of comic book artists get into movies and things like that because pretty much every little panel that they're drawing is kind of like a storyboard in a way, right? Or very much in a way. It's just different sizes. So that makes total
Totally.
sense. And then to have all these fine artists come in and start doing concepts, people that really understand light, shadow, color, atmosphere, all that stuff, that totally makes sense as well, just because um, the technology has driven the art to make so many more movies that need CG, right? Need
Yep. Yep.
computer generated stuff. So when that happens, when they are just filming in front of green screens and they need to build worlds and stuff like that, well, now there's a need for those kind of people with that kind of a knowledge more than ever before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, it's all merging, and it's cool. I mean, it's very cool for me to be able because you know all throughout my training and everything, I always, regardless of what anybody else said, I would look at someone like Ryan Church and look at someone, guys who were doing stuff for movies or whatever, and I would just be blown away by it, and illustrators, concept artists, it was all awesome, but there were people that I was around that were like, I don't really, this Baroque painting is really the height of it, and they would say that kind of a thing, but I really do see it all merging, and it's exciting because really interesting things are happening in art, and actually it's happening on the fine art side too, which I don't know if you see this side a lot, Bobby, but like Arcadia University, like Arcadia Gallery, they dropped a whole bunch of people, and they had a whole new vision, and it was a much more creative vision, and they have a lot of illustrators that are in there now in their gallery too, but they have a lot of fine artists as well too. So I think the fine art scene is actually pulling from the entertainment scene, and I think it's vice versa. It's like this back and forth, but it's pretty cool to see how it's all gelling now, and we're getting some really great art because of it. It's awesome.
Definitely, and because of so much more kind of disposable income, because you have gadgets that do like 20 things now, and
right.
stuff like that, and prices are way lower now.
Yep.
There's a lot more people doing art, and there's a lot more people buying art.
Yeah.
That's how
Yep.
I feel.
Yep.
Whether it's at a super high level, like buying millions of dollars of worth of paintings, or just like the regular people buying prints, I can definitely say, the more kind of common sales and stuff have definitely jumped.
Yeah.
$1 million paintings being purchased, I don't know, but I still feel like, that at least Asia has really changed stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm sure it's changed. I know it's changed stuff in the fine art world, and it's definitely started to change a lot of stuff in the movie industry as well. Like you watch, did you watch the new Mission Impossible?
Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And in the very beginning, it says something like Alibaba Productions or something like that. Alibaba is like Amazon for Asia, except way bigger.
Right. Which is interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I that's funny. That's funny that you mentioned that. I did see that, and I was like, oh, I was like, oh, wow. I was like, I don't know that production company or whatever. That's yeah.
Yeah, and before I would hear people say, oh yeah, a lot of stuff is being done in China or India or whatever. But yeah, it's all production stuff. The creative stuff, we're safe. They don't have, they're not caught up yet, right?
Right.
But now what's happening is they are funding the whole frickin' project, right? Because like movies,
Right.
It's hard to get them made. There's so many hurdles you have to go
Sure.
over. And then, a lot of Chinese companies are totally hiring directors to make the movie, right?
Yeah.
They're getting all their money from these Chinese studios. So, yeah, man, times are changing quick.
I know, and it's quicker than ever, man. And it's like, it is because of the way that information can be shared and sort of the world getting smaller. Man, it's just going to get quicker, I think. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think I totally went on a huge tangent. I forget what the question even was, but let's go back to some questions here. So Mark is asking, when sketching in public, how do you deal with people looking back at you? How do you deal with them? How do you make sure that they don't freak out? Well, I would love to mention Masei and a couple of the other people here at Imaginism. We're starting back up the Subway Sketch Group.
Yep.
All right.
Right? So like about 11 years ago, I started sketching in the subways, teaching whoever wanted to show up. I would teach them for free, right? And it's all about working towards our goals artistically and just doing good art habits and stuff like that. It's absolutely free to join, and the best thing of all is you're sketching with a bunch of people, so it totally takes away that intimidation factor. Mm-hmm. Because like everybody on the subway, they're all sketching.
Yeah.
Right, you're not the one weirdo anymore. Maybe
I'm still that weirdo.
You want to tell some information about that?
Yeah, so we're actually going to be announcing when we're gonna start our subway sketching. It's gonna start actually this Sunday. It's gonna be me and two other girls who are gonna be running it, and it's just gonna be like a casual, subway sketching. Just get other artists to come out, sketch people, get to meet new people, and yeah, the whole intimidation factor it really goes down because knowing that other people are sketching with you and you're not the only one, it makes you feel a bit more confident, and you're not that one person who's just like sketching people.
Yeah, you're not the weird, perhaps pervert or whatever it might be sitting on the subway. There's an event happening.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's like the whole in the past weekend in Toronto, they had a no pants event on the subway.
Oh yes.
Where people they just go in their underwear, and it's just like a bunch of people. So it's like the same thing. It's like, it's weird if it's just you, but if it's a bunch of people, then it's completely normal.
So you're saying pants optional this Sunday? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, it's optional.
That's awesome.
And by the way, this is Toronto. That's cold.
Oh yeah.
That's really
true.
cold to go and do that. So good on those guys, I guess. And who knows when I might pop by, Kay might pop by. It's definitely something we love doing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't live there, just grab a bunch of people that make art and do the same thing.
Yes. Sorry. Back to the question. Find some friends. Make a group.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
Yeah, I mean, even if you find 2 or 3 other people, it is way less creepy when 2 or 3 people are drawing. It's like, oh, it's sort of like a class. People feel like it's sort of a class.
Yeah.
And they won't feel quite as weird about it. I'm surprised though that was the question though, because normally the question that I get most of the time when people are sketching or painting in public is how do you deal with freaking out when other people start looking at your work? That's what usually the question that I get all the time. Or saying stuff,
Yeah, like at the zoo, when I sketch at the zoo, then kids will come over and they'll like literally put their little heads right in front of me, between me and the paper, and stare at it real close. Yeah, it's well, that's part of the fun and the challenge of doing the sketches and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, funny thing is that first time I went to Paris, I had to go to the Louvre. I had to see the Mona Lisa, and of course, I had to sketch the Mona Lisa because I'm there and I'm an artist. So
you got
this thing, and within half an hour, at least 5 people came by to critique my work. And go, yeah, I think that eye is a little too low, or things like that. It was hilarious.
Did you like
That's
that? Was
awesome.
that like a good thing?
Oh, that's why I stopped drawing. Because I'm like, well, I'm not saying I'm even close, but when he was painting the Mona Lisa, he didn't have a million tourists all around him critiquing his stuff, and he had a lot more time.
Oh yeah.
It's true. It's really true. And actually, I saw a recent thing where apparently they did some scan of it, like an X-ray scan or something, and he had started the painting differently underneath, like it was a different pose.
Yes.
And then he redid it, so you could see that underneath. I couldn't understand the science of it, but it was apparently different. He kind of just scrapped it and then painted over it, which is cool to see.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. I always chalk it up to them not knowing what they're talking about too. Because I'll do great stuff, and people will be like, "That's awful." They'll come up and make awful comments or would not be interested in it, and then I'll do horrible stuff, and they'll come up and say it's amazing. So I just figure nobody knows what they're talking about.
I just chalk it up as like, the whole there's no such thing as a smooth ride all the way through. I just chalk it up to those are the bumps.
That's right.
Cool. So I want to end off the stream here with a couple things. Perfect Bait audiobook. It's free to download until the end of this month. I'll put a link in the video when I upload this on YouTube, but as well you can look in the comments just underneath the stream on Livestream, and you can see the links that I put there. Other links I put there is workshops, Schoolism workshops. Hey, if you haven't been to a Schoolism workshop, you're definitely missing out. It's so positive in so many different ways. Right now, Montreal, Florence, Seattle, London, and Berlin, they're all open to buy tickets. So get on it.
Awesome.
The other thing I want to mention was the in-house workshop. You know, John, you spent some time at the in-house workshop. Maybe you could describe what it is and what it's like there, because it is
Yeah, I
pretty
mean,
special.
it's awesome. I mean, it's so cool. I mean, that is I think one of the best ways to learn. It's this short. Well, it's the one that I saw. They were there for a month. I don't know if it's like that every time, but
Yeah.
but they're there for a month, and it's this intensive time where you have this awesome house with awesome landscape outside, and it's in this great town of Saint Julien, and I actually loved the town and everything, but it's this quiet place where students can come, focus on their art, you know, like 24/7, really. But it's a good environment because Thierry is just, you know, he's really good. He's really good at breaking it down to the fundamentals. He and I were laughing because it's kind of like you and me, Bobby, where we were just saying kind of the same things, you know. But it's not a stressful environment. It's like students can come and it's like, well, hey, well, let's work on this. All right, we're going to do this now, you know, and yeah, let's do this. Everybody get together. We need to work on this particular aspect. Let's do some exercises that do this. And the students could live together, could be around Thierry all the time. And to be honest, when I was there visiting for a week, a lot of the conversations about art, a lot of the really meaningful ones were ones like over dinner, which was awesome, by the way. Thierry's cooking was fantastic. And I hadn't had poutine before, too, and I had it there, and he did it like 5-star poutine, too. It was awesome. But, you know, a lot of the really important conversations happened over dinner, and there's a difference in taking a class. Taking a class is awesome. It's great. This is like living with other artists, working with other artists alongside them. You know, it's more of an apprenticeship. It's that sort of a way of working, and there's a real difference because it's you know, it's that personal side of things that really helps, and not everybody gets that experience. I got that experience when I went to the atelier to train. It was me and 4 other students with 2 teachers for a long time. And that's a great experience. When it's a small group, you get a lot of focus. You can ask whatever you want. You know, I mean, you know, they were asking me questions like, you know, well, what happens when someone comes up and they want to buy your painting in a gallery, or what, you know, I mean, they were asking me all sorts of things some things that I'd never been asked. And, you know, you just don't, in a normal setting, you don't have time for that. But this is, in this type of a setting, it's great. You know, students can really just treat it like an apprenticeship and spend that time. It's awesome.
Also,
I think it's a great idea.
there's things that I will answer that I wouldn't really answer as candidly in any other, you know, situation or environment.
That's right.
Right?
That's
'Cause
right.
it's
Yeah,
the
totally.
4 of you. Yeah,
Yeah,
you could really
yeah.
get into stuff.
Totally.
Yeah, and anybody that is interested at any time, definitely just try and apply. I know it's difficult because we only accept 4 artists at a time, but that also helps to attract the 1%, you know, the top 1% that are crazy hungry to get really, really good. Because it is the most intense yet serene thing that we do.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, John, for spending time with me and with everybody else. I'll just thank you on behalf
Oh, it
of
was
them.
awesome, man. It was awesome.
Like I was saying to you before the stream, I would love to do another stream where perhaps you're painting this time. That would be super cool to see. And then
Let's do it.
We can like ask you some questions about that as well. Awesome.
I got some surprises, I think, in the works. I got some things that'd be fun to do. Let's do it, man.
Excellent. So we're gonna try to do that for you guys next week, same day, same time, same channel, and then tomorrow I'm actually gonna have Thierry Lafontaine, the the person we're talking about that runs the workshop house, and the artists that go to the workshop house actually would be living with their mentor Thierry Lafontaine. I'm gonna have him on tomorrow, so we can talk about art and see his paintings, because I asked him to do painting for you guys to watch as well, so you don't always have to watch my drawings and paintings. And that's it. So thank you so much to everybody, but especially John. Thank you very much, John, and we'll see you soon.
Good questions, everybody. Thanks, Bobby. It was great. Let's do it again. Hi, my name is Jonathan Hardesty, and I've been a fine artist for 13 years. In my class, Essentials of Realism, we're going to explore what makes a work of art look realistic. As a representational painter, I've had to think about realism a lot over the years. And realism breaks down to 4 key concepts: proportion, value, edge, and color. In my class, we're going to learn how to understand those concepts, observe them properly from reality, and also be able to manipulate them while maintaining realism. All lectures are pre-recorded, so it doesn't matter what time zone you're in or what your sleeping habits are. You can access all the content when it's convenient for you. There's also no specific medium requirement for this class. Students can learn just as effectively painting and drawing digitally. Throughout the length of this class, I'll be available to answer your questions, help you with any problems, and give you one-on-one personalized instruction. In each stage, I'll be painting directly over top of your work and helping you grasp these concepts and make them your own. I have a real passion for teaching, so I'm looking forward to seeing you in my class. Sign up right away because there's only a limited amount of spaces. I'll see you there.